So we're waiting on Susan?
What about Susan?
Last I checked, she should be here.
Okay,
Yeah, she confirmed that she'd be here.
all right.
Somebody want to tell a joke?
ITM board makes it.
Susan has emailed and said she won't be able to make it, so we'll just move forward with the 3.
Can we?
We can, yeah. We have 3 out of 5, so we're okay.
That's good, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I
I
thought we
thought
had
it
to have
was
4.
Yeah.
4 is a quorum, isn't it?
3 out of 5 is.
I thought 4, we had to have 4 for a quorum, but okay. Wow.
60%, just like your high school average.
Whoa, there's a singer.
Hey, it'll still get you out of Austin College.
Oh, so I told a joke. I got
You
the
did.
joke in.
You got the joke there.
It'll still get you out of AC.
Wow.
I'm proof. Okay, let's see here. I gotta see.
So I guess there's no difference if there are people speaking opposed or not.
I was supposed to be in Florida, and I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
All right, Brett says, do y'all have 3 there?
You know, in one of the other boards, you have to
Tell them
have,
we're okay.
Let's see what he says. He may be fixing to head this way.
Okay.
He's typing.
Huh?
He's typing. It's a typical lawyer. It's taking a while.
Yeah, take it forever, yeah.
They're charging by the hour.
Right, yeah.
at least you're not a doctor, you might get a straight line.
Yeah. Yeah, even a doctor types. Even when he types, I can't read it.
Right.
They have to.
All right, so, okay, I don't think he's gonna make it.
Is he coming?
I'm not sure. He's still typing.
Yeah.
He's still thinking.
Okay.
You might wanna tell him he doesn't have to.
Well, he asked me if there was 3. I told him, yeah. Yeah, okay. He's just making sure. Those 2. Okay, good morning, everybody. We're running a little late this morning. We're kind of shorthanded today, but we do have enough that we can legally conduct the meeting, so we're going to move forward. I am going to call the meeting to order at 10:03 a.m. Do we need to do a roll call, Fanchen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we don't.
That's, all right, so before we get started, let me just kind of go over a few housekeeping rules this morning. For those of you who are not privy to the information, the Planning Commission is a recommending body and a recommending body only. So our decisions here today, with the exceptions of plats and site plans, which will be final today, will be passed on to the City Council for final approval, and that will be on Monday, the 18th of October. That's the meeting that they will hear the same cases that we're hearing this morning. We're going to give you the opportunity. I think the cases we have today are basically public hearings, so we're going to give you the opportunity to come and speak. I will impose a 3-minute limit on speakers today. I also ask that if someone has already spoken and said the same thing that you're going to say, or that you were going to say, you don't have to repeat it. You can just come up and say, what I wanted to say has already been said. But I just want, to reiterate the fact that this is my stance on the case. However, you are free to speak and to say whatever you choose. That being said, we're going to move into our consent agenda. I think everybody that's wanting to speak, have you filled out a speaker's card? I've got several on the desk here, but if you haven't and you want to address the commission this morning, I'd ask that you would see Fanchon and fill out a speaker's card for us for the record, please. All right, let's move into item 3. We're going to go to the consent agenda. Any corrections to the minutes? I think, Mary, did you go over that with Fanchon? Okay, so we're good with that. Anything on the consent agenda that we don't want to pull off and review? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
There we go. And all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None?
None.
Okay. Let's move into the public hearings. Item 4A, Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. This is item 4A, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 66 acres from SF75 to a planned development overlay zoning district to allow for a single-family development. Case number 2021-130 PD. This morning I went ahead and, as just an update, I went ahead and cleaned up this aerial. The one in your packet is a little bit larger than what's actually going to be rezoned, so this appears more accurate. The survey and legal description is accurate. It's just the attachment that got included was just a little bit off. So this is the most current aerial and outline that I have. So this is a subject property here. You have 60 acres north of West Bond, east of Ray Drive, and that's going to be west of Juanita Drive there. Zoning of the subject property, you do have Mock Circle, which that development there is mostly or entirely zoned as multifamily 1, but that's already built out and developed. The remaining properties adjacent to this subject project here is going to be zone SF single family 7.5. As you can see, the development is broken up into multiple phases. My understanding is speaking with the developers, they want to kick off what they're calling phase 1B and 1A first, and then move into phase 1C, and then eventually phase 2 and 3. Phase 2 and 3 are going to be the larger lots, larger homes that kind of encircle that lake area or that pond. They also have plans to do some sort of open space amenity feature around that open space as well, and kind of serve as this focal point for the development. The reason the applicant's requesting a PD from the straight zoning of SF75 is, as you know, single-family 7.5 requires a 7,500 square foot lot, as well as it being 50 by 100 feet deep, and then plus or minus on the width or depth to achieve 7,500 square feet.
Hang on a second, Mr. Couch is going to call. We're kidding, Butch.
So the reason for the change is they're actually requesting flexibility to allow a minimum of 50-foot wide lots by 100-foot deep, but still requires 6,000 square feet for the entire PD. So again, they'd have to give or take either 50-foot wide or 120-foot deep, something like that. In these different phases, the breakdown looks like phases 1A and 1B must contain a single car garage. The standard in SF75 is a 2-car garage. So again, phase 1A is that piece on Ray, and then phase B is the piece on Bond, those smaller sections there, with a 1-car garage and B no less than 1,200 square feet for the detached house. As we move into 1C, the new homes must contain 2-car garages and be no less than 1,400 square feet, which exceeds the SF75 base zoning. As we move into phase 2 and 3, each of these houses must contain 2-car garages and be no less than 2,000 square feet in area, so significantly larger than SF75. So because there's a little bit of give and take there, we're not just pursuing a PD to allow for significantly smaller lots, and the phases are requiring larger lots in most of the development and larger size homes. We think it's appropriate for the nearby area that's zone SF5, and city staff recommends approval. Just looking into the future, if this body recommends approval and city council adopts this PD, we'll move right into a preliminary plat and then final platting of each phase and civil engineering plans, so that way our public works department can start reviewing that.
Questions, Bill?
Just one, there's going to be a kind of a funny situation down there with Phase 1B. Will those houses face on Bond Street?
My understanding is, yes, those would face on Bond Street, as those are going to be the first developments to go or to be created. Sorry, another thing I forgot to mention as well is the applicant's also working on a tree survey for the entire 60 acres, as well as a tree preservation plan that would need to be submitted with their preliminary plat. We know that there's a lot of heavily wooded areas on this site, so we're being sensitive to that as well.
Is there already a utility available to all that area?
All the utilities and infrastructure would need to be extended and looped throughout the entire subdivision. And that would be at the expense of the developer.
Any other questions, Bill? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna call these out. If you want to speak, we'll let you come out. Alan Rossner.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody this morning?
Good.
So,
Can I get your name and address for the record?
yeah,
please?
Alan Rosner. I have the property at 2110 Dove. I'm also at 303 Tracy in the county. The city needs this development. I think the last major development that the city watched, I think it happened over on Crawford, was the last time we built this vast of a development. On the west side of 75, you have a couple of smaller ones that went in, but when you look at how those were put in, they don't have Atmos gas. They're running on propane tanks. It's the most. It was done halfway, in my opinion. This is going to help everybody. It's going to help the city. It's going to raise the tax base, and I don't have to tell you guys, it's very, very important. But that's my opinion, and you can do what you want with it. But I appreciate you giving me a couple minutes. Thanks.
Any questions, Speaker? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Okay. Anthony Tillman.
Morning. I'm here representing my mom, who lives at 1911 West Walker. Can anybody tell me, you didn't answer one question, how many of these 2,000 square foot homes are you going to build?
I think the developer would be able to get you a specific number on.
How many of the 1,400 square feet homes are you going to build?
I'm sorry?
How many of the
Hang on
1,400
a
square
second.
feet?
Can you address that information? Sure.
Please.
All right. Do you
And then
mind
I'll
if I
sit
let
back
the
down.
Developer come, and
Do
I'll
what?
bring you right back up?
I'll go sit down, let him
I'll
address
bring
it.
you right back up. That way he can address it.
David Couch, 919 West Murray here in Denison. Yeah, I mean, we've been working on this plan for over a year. It does have a variation. If you'll see the PD development standards are going to be 1,400 square foot houses and then 2,000 square foot houses. Around the lake area, I'm calling it a lake, it's about 4 acres. We're actually going to expand that lake a little bit and combine 2 ponds there. Around that lake, those houses will probably be 3,000 square foot plus. It's just the bare minimum with the development standards will be 2,000. There'll be about 65 of those, and then there'll be about 150 houses that are probably going to be over 1,400 square foot. About 150.
150 houses that are over the 1,400 plus
Right,
65.
right. And then 65 that are over 2,000. That are over 2,000.
And then what are you looking at in the way of 1,200 foot houses on that fringe?
Well, that's going to be just the 1A and 1B.
Okay, how many lots does that consist of, Dave?
15.
15?
Mhm.
Okay, so there's only gonna be 15 of those.
And that 1B that Mary was concerned about, there's actually, that 1B slot there, there's actually a house there. There's a pink house there. We're going to keep that house existing. So there's actually going to be 4 lots facing Bond Street. It shows 6, but there's actually only 4 there.
So basically, what we're looking at here is a matter of economics. The development costs for this development will be such that it's going to require more expensive houses because the lots are going to be more expensive. So what we're going to wind up seeing is more of the larger homes that
Right.
will comply with.
I mean, we're trying to create a flow, and I think we've done that to most degree. I mean, it's going to be smaller around the perimeter of the property, and as you get back to that lake and that atmosphere, those houses are going to be bigger. Yeah.
So
And
what would you say, let's just, the 1,400-foot houses, what would you say the sales price on those houses is going to be? Got any rough idea on them?
north of 230.
Okay, so 230 plus. On the 2,000 foot up, what are you talking there?
I mean, I'm gonna say 4. I mean, at this market, I mean 4 plus. I would think all around the lake. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions y'all need, want to ask David while he's up here?
Well, he's there, I'd just like to know how you're gonna address the other water catchment areas, if there will be any, and the trails. You mentioned in the plan that there'd be.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be of course there'll be a walking trail. Well, it's such a big area. It's so small on that screen. There's actually a few other ponds there. Some will be filled in, and we've put in for all the engineering that's required to fill those in and for the excavation and dirt work on those. But yeah, there will be trails all the way around the pond, and they'll have all the roads will have sidewalks. And then there'll be another one. There'll be a drainage easement coming from the Mock Circle Pond, because that's a feeder pond. It all goes to the lake at the bottom, and there'll be trails all back through there to those 2 ponds as well. I mean, there'll be concrete.
Folks were concerned about the drainage in the neighborhood
Well-
outside the development. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, that lake, if you look at topo, that lake is the lowest spot in this whole area. So everything that's in all these neighborhoods goes to that lake, and that's the detention. And then it outflows out past the railroad. So, I mean, this is the lowest point. So everything goes to that lake now, it'll still go there. Mhm. And then Vilbig's done a feasibility study on that detention, and it'll hold volume.
I guess the other concern I have with those smaller lots is that if the people that are buying the homes are involved with the development, if they want to make changes, sometimes that's when we get into trouble. And have you kind of worked that out?
I mean, we're gonna Jesse and I we're gonna head up the architectural control committee, until it gets to a 75% occupancy, and then we'll start an HOA will be put in place at that point for the whole property. So, yeah.
What's your estimated build-out time on this, David?
I expect that. I mean, of course, I don't know if you guys know, we're doing the 40 lots along Ray and then Washington Street now. So we'll continue and jump to the other side of the road on 1A and then 1B. So small, it's only 4 lots. It won't take much time at all. But I expect 1C to take off probably in February.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Okay.
If we have anything, we'll let you come back. Hang on 1 second, sir. Let me let you come speak here in just a few minutes, and then you can address that question that you have, and then we'll get it done. I have to keep things in order.
I can come back as many times as you need, or we
I
can wait
will.
until I can address
You
it
go
later
back
again.
there, then any questions that we need answered, we'll call on you. Hang on a second, guys. I gotta do this per protocol, okay? All right, so let me do it. I don't look good in orange or gray, so I don't wanna go to jail for anything, okay? All right, Mr. Tillman, you come back forward.
Well, I had a lot to say I thought these were all small homes, but you've got 150, 1,400 square foot homes. Now, is that living area? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Why can we not make those homes bigger? Why can't we make them bigger?
Well, I think, and I'm gonna answer for Mr. Couch, and if he has a different answer, I'll let him address it in a few minutes. But it's a matter of economics, basically. What will and what won't sell in this market. And I think you're gonna find that right now, and not out of necessarily a necessity, that's all I can afford kind of thing. But what we're seeing in the market is that buyers are asking for smaller homes that are better designed with not a lot of wasted space that they don't use, and a smaller lot to take care of. That seems to be the trend in design, and of course, that's how I make my living, so I have to pay attention to what's happening in the marketplace if I want to stay in business. But that's what we're seeing, is that it's not necessarily, and I think a lot of the infill development that's been done over the past few years here in Denison, what I have seen is that people who have bought those homes are professionals. They're either single or divorced or some, widowed or whatever. But that's all the house that they need. And a lot of times they can afford twice as much as they bought, but they didn't need it. So that's part of what's driving what we're seeing. The next thing is that we're looking at the cost of development in today's world is extremely expensive. So land is one commodity that doesn't reproduce itself. So we have to make the best use of what we have left. I agree with you that more expensive houses are more desirable, especially for tax base within the city. I agree with that 100%. I just don't know that market, Denison's ready for that market so much yet. I think that's a risk that the developer's taking, in my opinion. But
Why don't we make it that way, though? Why do we do this in Denison? I don't see this being done, respectfully, I don't see this being done in Sherman. I do a lot of work with the city of Sherman. I don't see them doing this.
Well, there's a lot of different developments going on in Sherman. A lot of there's some custom developments, but then there's some volume developments that are going to be coming in. And it's a breakdown of who can afford what and what they want in the way of a house. Now, I'll give you an example. 25, 30 years ago, I did a lot of work in Las Colinas in Irving. I don't know if you're familiar with Las Colinas or not, but I did a lot of zero lot line houses. These lots were very small. They were, I believe, about 50 foot by 125, 130 foot depth. Those were $500,000 houses then. So the size of the lot doesn't necessarily dictate the price of the house. You can put an expensive house on a small lot. It's just, it can be done. But it's all market driven kind of thing. And that's, so, and you look at, it's kind of like a car dealer. They advertise they've got this car for this price, but when you get there, you wind up paying more because you buy more car. That's usually what happens in housing as well. Volume builders especially, they'll advertise this price on this house, but then when you go in and you start putting the extras in there, the things that you want, additional, upgrades and carpet upgrades and this and that, then you wind up paying more money. So the houses wind up usually being more expensive and bigger than what they anticipate to begin with.
Okay.
So
I agree this is good for Denison, okay? But I don't want to see low-income housing in
No.
Denison.
And that's why I made the statement a while ago about, because the development costs, and a lot of, we have to understand that the development costs now are so expensive.
I understand.
He has to put the streets in for the city specs, water, sewer, the engineering that has to be done.
He's still making money, though.
He's got a lot of money invested in it.
Right.
Right? Well, all that does is push the price of every one of those lots up a little bit more. So that's what drives it. And if you're paying $40,000 to $60,000, let's just pull that number out of the air for a lot, you can't put a small house on that lot. You have to put something bigger in order for the numbers to work. So a lot of these new developments that we're seeing come through, people are upset because the lots are smaller. But when you look at the development costs, it's not gonna be the same thing as where we're recreating the infield, because the dollars are gonna require it to be a bigger, more expensive
It's
house.
still basic economics, though. People can afford to buy what's being built.
And that's true. And so that's why I'm saying, it's a roll of the dice for him on a $400,000 house as to how many buyers we have in our demographic area that can actually buy a $400,000 house. That's his roll of the dice, not ours.
And that's a risk for him right now?
Yeah, I would say so.
Nah, it's not a risk for him. I just want to make sure that these aren't low-income
If
houses.
you're going out there and you're spending the money he's gonna spend to develop this thing, he has to sell those lots.
That's right, and he knows he
has
will.
to. But if you don't have a buying populace can afford that house, who's gonna buy those lots and build on them?
Well, like, it's basic economics, so people have money they can buy what they can afford.
And that's what I agree with that, but you look at the demographics of Denison and the income levels, and that's where you have to ask yourself, is it a roll of the dice for him? That's his call, not mine.
Okay,
I just have to look at this from a zoning perspective as to whether or not, like you said, this is a good thing for Denison. And we have to decide based on what we have here, is this a good land use? That's what we're here to talk about today, not
Okay.
necessarily.
I just want to make sure that it's not low-income housing.
There's no way it could be.
Thank you for the 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Tillman. All right, Raymond Spillman, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right,
My question was,
gotta get your name and address for the record.
okay. My name's Raymond
Too many
Spillman.
rules, isn't it?
I live at 2010 Collier Drive,
Denison?
Denison.
Okay.
Right. And my question is, I don't understand the streeting, the way they got the streets, where the streets are going to come in and out on this phase 2 on Collier there. And I thought maybe that the gentleman that come before and spoke, he might be able to tell us how they're going to route the traffic in and out that area.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. We'll get him back up here in just a little minute to rebut any questions that we have.
All right.
Okay? Anything else?
No, that's all I had.
Okay. Are you comfortable with what the development's gonna be with the size houses and?
Yeah, I was like him. I didn't want low-income houses back there, but it doesn't sound that's the way it's going to be at all. So I'm satisfied with that.
Thank you, Mr. Spillman. Any questions of the speaker? Okay. Richard, is it Prinz?
Nothing at this time.
Nothing? Okay. Joseph Costa? Oh, okay. Sure.
Hi, I'm Marlinda Costa. We live at 1931 West Washington Street, Denison.
Okay.
And one of my concerns is the flooding of our property because we live at the dead end of the street. And it kind of curves around, and all the water off of Washington runs right into our yard, and it goes to the side of it and runs straight all the way down into that field. So it depends on what kind of fencing they put up. I read they had possible wrought iron or mortar, or it depends on what kind of fencing they put up, because if it's like mortar, it's going to block that water, because it looks like almost a river. Or a creek running down through there when it rains, especially a heavy rain. And if you put something there, it's just going to block it, and it's going to flood our yard,
Well, let me just say this.
because it'll have
You guys
nowhere to
having
go.
Problems that just about everybody in town has, we don't have the greatest.
It's
Stormwater.
major, though. I mean,
Let
right
me tell you
now,
what
it's
happened here
bad.
before. This today, all we're doing today is talking about changing the zoning. That's all we're doing here today. Before Mr. Couch can develop this, it's gonna go through a vicious cycle, with engineers. So there'll be hydraulics. Mr. Medina will get to tell them all kinds of things he don't like and all this kind of stuff. But our engineers at the city will review it. They will have, a civil engineer will have to design it, and this will be for the grading, the drainage, the hydraulic study. So where all these detention ponds, where these lakes are that he's talking about, all that water has to be calculated as to where that water's gonna go, how much water it's gonna be, because when you build houses and you pour streets and you pour driveways, you create what we call impervious areas, which means the water don't absorb, so it runs off. So you gotta have a place for it to go. Those engineers, they'll go over it with a fine-tooth comb. What might end up happening when this is all said and done and this development is completed, your water issues may be resolved, because they may change that topography to the point that water would go off in there. Doubtful that there's gonna be any kind of masonry walls or anything built that's for screening or purposes. I don't see anything like that. I mean, we'll ask David about it when we ran back up here. But I think that the fencing shouldn't be shouldn't be an issue as far as water drainage, but, before this thing is approved to be constructed, I can promise you, the engineers will go over it with a fine tooth comb.
And the higher-end homes are right there. Phase 2 backs up to our property.
Yeah, 3 lots come
To our
land.
one lot, there's going to be backs up to 3 different yards.
Yeah, you guys are, where is Washington?
It's up in that right-hand
it's-
top corner.
it's just
right
one
above.
little
Phase
section
1A,
there. We're in a little
your guys are gonna be there
cul-de-sac.
Phase 1A?
No, we're
Phase
in,
2.
we're on the other side, the west side.
Oh, okay, over here.
Yeah, east side.
Yeah, I
Are
see
you
it.
on the
I see it.
part that turns north? So you,
Yeah, a little
one-
cul-de-sac there. We're at the
Yeah,
very end
one
of the
block up from
street.
Coyer. Or north of
Yeah.
Coyer.
yeah, it goes
Okay.
north about a block.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously,
I mean, that whole, from Juanita Street
Mm-hmm.
and all of, from Washington, all goes down that way.
Yep.
Everybody's yard ends up into
And we
our yard
face
on
the
one side or the
street.
other.
yeah. Well, unfortunately,
And that street isn't big enough to
can't-
do a lot with.
yeah, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can do about that, but, I mean, I will tell you
I know.
that when this development was all done, the stuff that's there now, the as-built stuff was there, we didn't have the same kind of requirements that we do today. Stormwater is now a federal regulated
Can I
Item.
speak to that a little bit, Charlie?
Sure.
Having lived on Main Street for a lot of years, I'd much prefer to have some controlled water than just what happens with Earth. Because right here on Main Street, it is pretty much downhill all the way from the 700 block all the way to 100 east. So that's 9 blocks. And it's controlled, and we have very few problems. So I think that you're going to be ahead with the development and some controlled water instead of what you've had in the past.
Well,
That's
the
just-
problem is none of that's in their property. It ends up there, but it does not start on any of their zoned
Well, if
areas.
it's going to that direction, and from what I'm hearing, the whole area seems to be sloping down towards that
Yep.
lake there. That's what I'm saying. Once they do all of their grading and everything, it may end up carrying more of that water on down to that lake, so that where it's coming off of your property, and it hits their property, instead of stopping right there, it'll carry it on out. I mean, I can't guarantee you, but I mean, I think that's what the engineers, that's how they'll grade it. But I don't foresee anything being structured on the site that's gonna hinder or block water or dam it up where it can't drain off. I don't see that happening. I don't think the engineer's gonna let that be the case. And again, that's gonna come back, it's gonna come back through, so it's a long process in order to get it approved, but, I mean, I wish I could help you on the other issue, but.
There's also the issue of the sewer. Since we live at the end of the street, at least 2 or 3 times a year, we have to call and have the city come flush that line because it gets stopped up because we're at the end of the street. So how are the, and that goes out into that field there that they want to develop. If there's all those other houses in there, how are they going to address that issue?
Again, the engineers will make them put bigger lines in that'll carry, the whole area is gonna have to be redone.
And there's also, he said they were going to combine 2 ponds. Well, there's a very large gas pipe that's exposed right now that runs in between those 2 ponds there. How can they combine them, or what are they going to do about that exposed
move it.
pipe?
They'll have to move it if they combine them.
Because it's
I mean, see,
6
these are all-
inch or
these are all
larger.
issues that will be picked up when they get to the engineering process. And they're not gonna let them do things that are gonna be hazardous or dangerous, so if there's a gas line that's gonna be in the way, they'll have to move the gas line. That's the end result. All the sewer capacity will have to be calculated on the number of lots, so the size sewer lines that they'll have to put in will be based on that. And so, every aspect of this, water drainage, the water lines that are gonna go in there, the size of the water lines, water mains, size of the sewer mains, it all has to be engineered, and so it's
Okay.
not the way it used to be, I can tell you, so.
What about the traffic on Juanita Street, because they're gonna have, 2 accesses from Juanita Street. And there's no light right now. Right now, it's already hard. It's difficult to get on from Morton Street, from Juanita Street onto Morton Street. Are you gonna put a light there? Because it's gonna increase the traffic.
Well, we'll address the entrances with Mr. Couch here shortly. Again, the city reviews this thing, so I would assume that if there's gonna be any problem with traffic and traffic counts, that they would have alarmed us with that already.
Okay.
But
Well, it's
ask him
already
about the-
difficult to get
Yes.
on, just to get on from
Or even get
Juanita.
off
And
Morton
all
onto
this
Juanita.
extra traffic from
Right.
200 homes, 215 lots there in that area
Yeah,
I
it's,
counted.
We'll ask Mr. Couch how he's gonna access the neighborhood to see exactly how many entrances, exits we have.
There's 4
And,
on the proposal right now.
And
okay,
2
so-
go on to Juanita Street.
yep. Again, and then we'll bring Mr. Medina up and we'll ask him about the traffic studies and see if there's any issues they think we have with that, so we'll see on it. You know, the property is zoned right now, single-family 7.5, okay?
The one with the cows on it that they're changing.
The property that we're talking about right now, it's already zoned for residential.
So
The
really,
only
we have
reason-
nothing to
the only
say about
reason
it
that we're
already.
here today is because we're gonna go to a planned development versus single-family zoning. Which is a good thing for the city, because it kind of puts the city in a position to really control what goes in there. In a 7.5 district, sometimes we have no control, it's just, as long as the lots meet the required minimums, then that's it. My point of that is this, eventually this property's gonna get developed. That's a fact.
How is the city going to supply it? You got sewer, you got water, and you got electric. You can put 3,000 square foot homes in there. We got a water leak on Washington that's been there for a year.
Yeah.
Y'all been out there 4 times, painting the road, surveying it so they can come in and fix it, and
Yeah,
it's
well,
leaks
again,
today.
I mean, I agree that there's all sorts of issues, except those issues are outside our scope of today. And that's not something the planning commission is strapped with. That's not our job, basically. That's Public Works' problem, in which you should be contacting them on a regular
They've been
basis.
contacted
To
several
get
times.
something done. Would you check into that for us? All right. I think what I'm trying to stress is that I totally understand the concerns that have been voiced, but it's gonna get developed at some point in time, you know? And we're gonna have the same issues in any development that goes in there. And they're gonna have to comply, they're gonna have to do the same thing as far as the streets and the sewer and the water. It's all gonna have to be designed and meet today's requirements. So, I know that it would be great if it just stayed like it is right now. It's pretty, but it's not going to. So what we have to do is decide, let's try to get the best land use that we can get for it and make it where it's something that, you know, we're proud of. I don't know if you caught this or not, but they have an architectural review committee. Okay, well, if we just did a subdivision in there that complied with this zoning, wouldn't have to have one. They have one, so every house that's built in there has to go through and be approved by their architectural review committee before it's allowed to be built in there. So by doing this as a PD, we have a little bit more leverage, we have a little bit more control of what's gonna be your neighbors. So,
It's also going to raise our taxes, because when they appraise our property, they're going to look at the $400,000 home that's right beside us compared to our little $110,000 appraised property value, and then raise it higher, making it more unaffordable, and that's going to raise our
That could
homeowners
very well
insurance
happen,
and all of
but it's
it.
gonna happen regardless, because that's what I'm trying to say, is it's gonna get developed.
But they shouldn't compare our home. It's an
Well,
old,
that's the
small,
county.
1,700-foot
You can file county on
home.
that. We don't have any control of that, that's the
Yeah, we
county.
do every year.
So I'm just like you, I'm a victim of whatever the county says. So we don't have any control over that. If you're not happy with the appraisal they give you, you can always go.
I have
protest
several
it.
times, but,
A lot of good that does, I think, but, you know, again, I totally understand where you're coming from, but there's just not a lot that's gonna be, I mean, it's gonna happen. Whether it happens with this development, or if it happens with another one, it's gonna happen. And, my thinking is that we try to put something in there that we have a little bit of control, and we can make sure that it's gonna be a quality development, so that you've got good neighbors and, I mean, and that your property values do stay good. I mean, I don't wanna see something go in there that would bring your property values down. And that could happen too. You know, and God forbid somebody should come in here and wanna take that property and rezone it to an industrial district. You know, we don't want that to happen either. So, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you at this point. Any questions of the speakers?
okay. And they're gonna address about the light,
About the what?
the light.
At the intersection of Morton and.
Oh, we're
Wondersen.
gonna have Mr. Couch come back, and we're gonna have Mr. Medina come back. So we can
Okay.
address those questions, okay? Okay, that's all of the speaker cards that I have. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I've never done this.
That's okay. There's a first time for everything. Come ahead. And I'm gonna ask you before you leave today, if you would fill out a card, so she'll have that for the record, please.
Okay.
Give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Shelby Milks. I live at 2019 Collier Drive in Denison. I do have a concern. From the map, it looks like they're going to put a road about 5 feet away from my house. Coming north, because I live on the very end of Collier.
On the very west end.
Yes,
So that last lot there before the development starts?
yeah, in phase 2.
Well, you understand that we have what we call a right-of-way, a minimum right-of-way,
I know.
and it's 50 feet, and that street will be 31 feet from back of curb to back of curb. So if that's a 50-foot right-of-way through there, and I'm not sure if it's 50 or it may be a little larger right there at that point, you'll have somewhere between 10 and 11 feet between the street and where the property line is.
Okay.
And then on over the setback to your house, whatever that setback is.
Okay, sorry. I've owned the house for less than a year. I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Yeah.
Some of my neighbors expressed concern about having that go right through there.
Right.
And unfortunately, that neighbor cannot be here today because he fell ill. He did want to, sorry, he sent me through a text. Make a suggestion that instead of going in from the north by my house, it should be taken east on Washington Street, but I don't even know if that would be feasible or better or worse. I'm just repeating what he's wanted me to.
Well, I'm not gonna sit here today and criticize the design.
Yeah.
That's not what we're here for.
I
The engineers have
promised him
already
I'd come
done
up here and
work
say
on
it.
this, yeah. So, but, I mean, there's always the possibility that right-of-way right there along your property line could be screened.
Yeah, privacy fence,
from
what
your-
I was
From
saying.
your property.
Well, thank you for letting me come up here.
Sure.
Where are the cards I need to?
So it wasn't that bad, was it?
No,
Wasn't that
sorry.
scary?
A little intimidating, but,
Just see Fanchon, she'll get you a card you can fill out for us. Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am. Okay, we'll get you, she's got them out there, so she'll get you one. Get two, Fanchon.
Okay, I live on 1931 West Denison.
Okay.
It's a dead-end street.
Ma'am, could I ask, do you mind taking your mask off while you address us? I can't really understand you. Thank you.
Okay, I live at 1931 West Johnson.
Mhm.
It's a dead-end street. And I was just wanting to know, do you have any idea when construction will start on that street right there?
That's another question we'll ask the developer.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I guess all my questions will be for him then, because I wanted to know, at this point, our mailbox is right in the middle of the street, since it's a dead-end street, so, do we take care of that, or how do we do that?
I guess I'm not following your question.
The road just comes to a dead-end street,
Uh-huh.
and the last house just kind of narrows like that, so our mailbox is right here, but the street will be over here, I guess.
Is Johnson gonna continue?
Johnson is going to continue, it's going to be reworked.
Okay.
So
They'll move them.
the city will move it, or
Well, when they do the new streets,
they will tear it down, or?
the mailbox,
Uh-huh.
is it a brick mailbox?
No, it's
No.
just, it's
Okay.
just, but.
No, they'll have to move the mailboxes and get them back by the curbs.
Okay.
Now, there's probably gonna be a difference between what you have now in the West Street. I don't know, is that an asphalt street?
Yeah, it's in bad shape, though.
So they're gonna attach with a concrete street with curbs. So, right? Is that what you're gonna do?
We're going to repave actually Johnson from Juanita on down, and then we'll start our concrete.
Okay. So it sounds like to me you're gonna get a new street.
Oh, okay, so, also, will any of the trees or the ponds be kept? There's a really nice pond in the back.
Yes,
They
yes.
will?
As Mr. Medina said earlier when he addressed us on the case, they're doing a tree survey right now, tree preservation survey.
Okay,
So, yeah.
Okay.
They're gonna preserve as many trees as possible, and they're going to preserve the ponds. They're actually gonna take the big one, the big lake, and they're gonna increase the size of it, so it's gonna be a larger.
one last question. About how many houses would sit in front of where I live right now?
We'll ask him that too. David, how many houses are you gonna have around Johnson right there?
I think there's 13 that go to the south there
Mhm.
as an intersection, and then as you continue on Johnson, I mean, there's going to be around 40 more houses.
Okay, okay.
How many more?
About 40,
40 along, but that's all the way Johnson, going all the way through the property.
all the way through, okay.
Okay, that must it then.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? Anyone else? Either for or against? All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. No, actually, I can't close the public hearing because I'm bringing Mr. Couch back up here.
All right, I'm going to work in the reverse order to address these comments. The Johnson Street, yeah, we're going to rework that road that comes through because it does narrow, and there's a house that's right next to the road there. We'll pave that road, and then we'll start a concrete road there. So if there's any mailboxes or anything like that, we'll pay for those and replace those accordingly. Where do you live on Johnson?
1931.
Are you at the very end?
No, the Winegers are at the very end.
Okay.
But before the Winegers go, the road narrows. It's just like an entrance to theirs.
Right, it'll be to spec. So that concrete road that's going to be there, it'll be 31 foot from curb to curb. So your road will be the asphalt that wide as well, if there's appropriate right of way there.
Yeah, we'll have to check right.
Yeah, but that road will be widened as well.
When do you think you might start construction?
That portion is probably going to be the February start date. Yeah.
When would it finish?
That's a
That's a million dollar
That's a big-
question right there.
Because we're at the corner, I wanted to know we're gonna have enough room to get out of there.
Right. That portion will probably be back open fairly quickly. We'll keep you know, everything that's existing there. We'll come rework that section at the last of that phase development, and then we'll reroute you probably. We'll put, there might even be a temporary drive rerouting you back down the other way temporarily. But I'm saying total project for that phase 1C is probably going to be 9 months to a year.
Okay, but we will have access to get in and out.
Right. Yeah, we'll provide something. It may be temporary roads, but yeah, we'll provide something.
Okay, can you address the entry points on subdivision?
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's four entrances we felt that are ample, and so did the engineers. I mean, they felt like that, this main subdivision is going to be coming in off Vic here, which is the car wash on Morton Street. If you take a right there, then we plan on reworking that as well into the entrance of this property. But I would think that most of your phase one and around the lake are gonna come back out that direction. So I think the main entry point is going to be that way. I'm sure that some of these, to the far right, some of these houses will take a right, off of Johnson, but I don't think it's going to be a big, increased volume of traffic, because it doesn't make sense to come back in here and go down Collier and then get on Juanita and come back through. I mean, everything, if you look at the design, everything flows back to that main entrance there in Vic, so that's just going to be the natural way these cars are going to flow out of there.
Well, they're gonna take the quickest one probably to their home, and there's two going on to Juanita Street.
Well, that's what
So it's gonna make it even harder on the traffic going down through there. So we're gonna need a traffic light at Morton.
I don't feel that it's any faster to go back down Collier to Juanita and back down to Morton than it would be with this road that flows straight out to Morton Street by the car wash there. I think if you're dead center at Collier where we start the development, you're equal. I mean, I don't think it's any faster going down Collier to get to Morton. I mean,
Still gonna increase the traffic on Juanita Street. We have to
I do believe it would increase the traffic to some degree on Juanita. Yeah. I don't think that it's going to increase the traffic as much as you think it would, just because of those four access points. I'm saying, there will be an increase, but if that would impact, justifying a bigger arterial, a bigger street and a stop sign, that'd be something that'd be internally with the city, and it'd be their decision.
We need a lot at Juanita and Morton, because there's gonna be even more traffic coming on to Juanita that's wanting to get on to Morton, and vice versa.
And they'll more than likely, they'll probably set up a study for traffic there as well as other points on this road, and they may require us to do the traffic study, and then they'll make their decision based on that. So, if that's what it calls for, then they'll put a lot in. I mean, that's what we needed. Yeah, I mean, if that study comes back, I mean, there might be some responsibility to us as well. I mean, I don't know how that works at this point.
Is Morton Street a text dot?
Yeah, the state of Texas would have to put
So
that light in.
that would be the state of Texas, not the city of Denison.
But we'll probably be responsible for the study, and if that study says it needs a lot, then yeah, we'll get there. But as far as your drainage, I would think they would solve some issues, because Collier, the engineer will take it, consideration the flows that are coming into the property, and they'll redirect those appropriately. So where you were pulling won't pull anymore. It'll go on down to the lake, so you'll have a better flow as far as.
Where's it going to, though, if there's like, even a privacy fence there, it's gonna block that water? You can't go under the fence, where's it gonna go?
Well, I mean, a lot of times the engineer will do he'll do a bar ditch along the back of the property. He's going to know the flow of water coming in, and he'll do a bar ditch, and he'll redirect that, maybe with even reinforced concrete pipe under the ground back to the pond. I mean, to keep a flow. I mean, that's their job. I mean,
On our property underneath, to keep it from flooding.
yeah, I mean, the engineer's not going to create a problem for anybody. I mean, they're going to solve problems. That's the whole point of them engineering it appropriately. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that I haven't seen your property, but I promise you the engineers are going to do you more good than they are harm, for sure. I mean, in designing this piece of property to accommodate water flow.
If they don't, then do we have any recourse, or are we just stuck with a flooded yard? Because the engineer said it wouldn't happen.
I don't know the liability. I mean, I'll let the engineers decide that. I mean,
Well, the engineers are gonna be responsible.
right, if,
For the water that's coming onto the site, okay?
but not on their house is prior. It's uphill from
I
our side.
understand that, but law still says you can't take water on your lot onto the neighbor's property.
Right.
That's what the law says, so,
And it's a lot of.
they're gonna have,
traffic running.
the engineers will take that flow, okay, those flow lines, and you understand that the difference between what we have now and what he's gonna have is, there's gonna be a series of stormwater drains and inlets that are gonna have to be added, and it's gonna be underground, run into that pond back there where they'll dump that water. So all that water that's coming in on the streets and everything, they'll have to calculate all of that hydraulics and find a place to take that water. And they size the pipe underground based on that.
Yeah, but that water has to get from our property through someone else's yard to that, is their backyard.
Is your water draining to the back?
It runs in between, it runs down Washington Street to our house. It's a L-shaped street.
But it's coming down the street.
It comes down the street and from the yards next to us up, and from the yards towards Juanita Street up. It all comes
all the natural runoff into our
It is.
yard.
I mean,
Well,
Charlie, that may be a better question for me to get with them afterwards, and we'll get them from Carrie.
yeah,
And let her give them a little more information on exactly what the city's got.
yeah. If it's water in the right of way that's coming down Washington Street, it'll continue on into the development, right? 'Cause
Right.
Washington's gonna connect into the subdivision,
Yeah.
right? So that water's gonna,
well, no, Washington won't connect into the subdivision. Collier will.
Collier doesn't. Okay,
But
so,
I mean,
Collier's not gonna affect us any on the water. It's not gonna change nothing on the water that runs in our yard.
yeah, I mean,
It goes down that way already.
what you're telling me though is your house is already flooding and it's standing water now. So I just don't. We're
No, it's not flooding right now
Because it
because
runs
it's
out
in
the field.
runoff.
well, it's going to continue to run off then.
Yeah.
We're not going to back water up your property and the engineers are going to allow it. I mean, and somebody will be liable if that was to happen. Yes, 100%. If you were to get backed up with water, then somebody's going to be liable.
Stop the flow of it. I mean, like I said, even just putting a wood fence, if you don't do more than that, it's gonna stop the water, because there's so much, it's like a creek going down through the side of our garden, through there.
We gotta consider all the trees
When it
and
rains
leaves
a lot.
that are.
well,
filling with the water.
here's what we're gonna do. Because, again, we're talking about a zoning case today.
Right.
We're not talking about hydraulics, okay? I would recommend you guys get with the city, and let's get somebody out there to look at the water flow and see, because, again, I've got some builders and developers in here today. You can't let your water go onto another private property. Okay, so, and then you say, well, how do I stop it
Been
from
doing this
happening?
for years.
Yeah, and I understand that. The city's full of places like that. But it's still, that's the law, that you can't let your water go off on your neighbor's
Well, it's not my water, it's Washington Street water.
That's what I'm trying to tell
Everybody
you,
else's
is
water
the
around.
city needs to be brought in on it so that they can figure out how to redirect the water on Washington Street to keep it from coming onto your property. I've got a case over on West Day, we have the same scenario where the water's coming down Day Street and it floods the lots, okay? So that's the city's responsibility, it's not the developer's responsibility. But the water that's coming onto his property, his engineers are gonna have to figure out how to resolve it. You know, and it may be some of your water that he's gonna have to figure out how to take care of. But that's what you need to do is get with the city and Kerry Jones and our Public Works Department and y'all sit down and let them come out there and take a look at it and see if there's something the city can do now to help relieve some of your water issues.
Like Charlie touched on it, I mean, this was already zoned SF5, and what I've done is basically I'm asking for a overlay of that zoning. The only thing I did that is less than SF5 was I reduced the lot size total area, but I increased the house sizes. So typically you could have put in 7.5 the minimum square foot on houses, 1,000 square foot. And I increased that to 1,200 square foot, and I increased it to 1,400 square foot in a section, and I increased that to 2,000 square foot, because I want bigger houses to go in here. I mean, as he hinted, somebody's gonna develop this property at some point, and they could put 1,000 square foot houses all through this whole property, and that just wouldn't be, that's not what we wanna do there. So that's why we're asking for the PD, is so we can do that variation.
Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't.
Right.
We're all saying,
Would you get with it before they leave
Elevation of the pond, 731. If you go to the far right corner, back up to Washington here, it's 781, and then elevation at their house is probably around 740, so 741, 742.
I don't know, we're higher than the lake.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been working on this project and designing this layout for it's been a year. I mean, so we've changed this probably 20, 30 times, and we feel like that we've got it, hammered down to what we need it to be, a great flow, great access points. I think the city's recommending approval, so I think they agree with this. It's gonna have a lot size, and these are minimum, so 1,400 square foot is the smallest house they can build in that section. It has to be bigger than that. To say we sell this lot off to a builder, they may do 1,800 square foot, but they can't go under 14. And so I expect predominantly 1,500 square foot houses through the majority of this, and they're around the lake, bigger houses, and they'll be north of 2,000.
How much traffic do you think that'll increase coming down Collier? It's a dead end street right now.
I really don't think, you have that section of those houses where that loops back. I think some of those might use Collier to come out Bonita, but I think that the flow is gonna work out better to come on out to Vic, back to Morton. I really do. I know that none of this, from the pond up this way, I know they're gonna use that entrance going back to Morton and then even Washington. So I'm thinking, if you had 30 houses in there using Collier on a regular basis, I just don't know how much that would impact. I don't think it'd be significant, really.
I have the same issue they do with flooding. On Juanita Drive, they have that dip where the city puts a drain there.
Right.
It goes down into the drain, and a couple hundred yards down there, it comes out of the ground, it comes down the rest of the street, and I've got a ditch in the back of my backyard now that's over my head.
Right.
The water's cut through there.
And like I said,
Right by that little pond that you're gonna cover up.
Right.
Phase two.
And I can't fix anything that's existing problems. Throughout all the houses that are existing around this property, all I can do is plan this the best I can to take whatever water's coming onto this property and direct it back to that pond.
I understand that, and you may help my problem when you fill in that other pond there or something, I don't know.
Right.
Something will have to be.
I personally think that once the engineers get finished with this project, it's gonna help the whole area.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I really honestly believe that.
Addressing some of the sewer concerns you had, that whole line, there will be a sewer study of volume of houses, volume of flow, size of pipe it needs to be. But all that sewer is gonna be ripped out and all replaced with bigger pipe.
The city sewer's already at maximum capacity. 200 extra houses in there to pump more water to, plus the fresh water we have. Pressure intake right now, the 200 more houses right next to mine, where's that pressure gonna come from now?
Well, that's the engineer's job. They do calculations and ratios. If something needs to be replaced and the city needs to increase their pressure, that's gonna be their thing to do, As far as volumes of sewer. Well, I can tell you now that the sewer lines are collapsed back on Mock Circle and all the way back down. There's issues with the sewer, so you're gonna benefit there. You're getting all the sewer pipes, so you're not gonna have any backup sewer. After we get done.
Let me stop this debate here, because all of that's gonna have to comply at engineering stage.
Right, yeah, it's not a zoning issue.
They're gonna do the studies on it, the engineers are gonna calculate it, and whatever size pipes have to be put in, you'll have to put them in.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Again, we're discussing the zoning case today, and we're
Yeah, I just try to accommodate everybody so everybody has a good feel going forward.
And I appreciate that. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Mr. Medina real quick.
Okay, all right.
Are we gonna ask for a traffic study?
I'll get with Public Works. Now, with regard to asking for a specific traffic study, we do believe that the vast majority of all the vehicular traffic is going to exit off of Vic. If you were to look at the aerial, and I'm sure everyone in this room is familiar with this area, all of your retail, all of your grocery store, all your shopping, your entertainment, even if you're going to the park, Waterloo Park, Ray Park, what have you, downtown, you're going to be exiting off of Vic. Now, we do think some of those homes that are closer to on the east side of the property will probably use some of those connections just because they're a little bit closer, but the vast majority of the traffic flow should go through Vic. The developer, Mr. Couch, has already agreed to square up Vic and kind of widen that entrance up a little bit and allow for safer traffic flow. FM 120 being a TxDOT right-of-way, I know they like for us to request a traffic impact analysis, but I really don't feel comfortable speaking for the Public Works Department if they're going to request one on this development. I would recommend it, but ultimately it's going to be up to the Public Works Director to call for something like that if she sees that if it's necessary. I'd be happy to follow up, though, with anybody in this room. I can give you my information and connect you with the Public Works Director as well regarding drainage, sewer concerns, water pressure, or traffic impact analysis. If that's something that's really important for the community in this neighborhood, we can get with her and make that happen if it's already not on our list.
I think that on his development, our engineers and his engineers work that out.
Absolutely.
And what I would like to see you guys do is get with the residents and discuss mainly their flooding issue and their drainage issues, so that we can bring, I know that's not necessarily what planning does, but you guys can work directly with Public Works and
Yes, sir.
try to get something resolved over there and see if we can figure out how to
Yes, sir.
handle that water.
After this meeting, I'll hang around today. If anybody just wants to give me your number, your email, your contacts, then I can connect you or act as liaison with the Public Works Director and kind of help you meet with them and voice your concerns on existing infrastructure problems.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
All the power lines right now overhead, are all them 200 houses gonna have overhead power lines coming into?
I don't know.
I'm not sure, Charlie.
I wouldn't think they would. Or you're not gonna go overhead with the power.
It's gonna be, that's gonna be.
That's an encore call.
Encore decision, but I haven't seen them do any overhead, any kind of development.
Long time, right.
Long time, yeah.
They want to go underground at all costs. They don't have to worry about trimming trees. They don't have to worry about lines getting knocked down in storms. So I would say, no, they'll go underground with it. I don't think there's a snowball's chance of, snow. Okay, all right.
You good?
All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Any comments, discussion among commission?
Not really. I think that because of the plan that we have here, there'll come a time when we'll be looking at some other things, but they don't need to be discussed today.
So this being a PD, I'm assuming, Bill, that what we have is the concept plan that's gonna be a part of that PD right now, right?
Yes, so this concept plan kind of serves as the foundation for the PD, but we're still going to receive or require a master plat or preliminary plat where we get into the details of the exact right-of-way width, the property line boundary descriptions, and the
So the plat will come back to us for approval.
the preliminary plat, yes, and then each final plat, each phase will be final platted, and that's staff approval.
That's good.
All right, thank you, sir. I have one question. I've already closed the public hearing, sorry. Get with Bill after the meeting. Who's Bill? Get with him after the meeting and see if he can answer it for you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the subject property being rezoned to a planned development overlay district for single-family residential development.
Second.
I have a motion with a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 4B.
This is item 4B, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a city-initiated rezoning of multiple lots from commercial and light industrial zoning districts to the SF5 or Single Family 5 zoning district located east of North Austin Avenue, north of West Gandy Street, and west of the rail line over here on the east part of town. That's the Burlington Northern. Case number 2021-128Z. This aerial here is just a approximate location. There are properties within this outlined area that have either requested to be exempt from the rezone or that we have specifically identified to not be rezoned because they're already commercial or industrial type properties. This is just for demonstration purposes. Here's the actual map of the property. So, of the properties being rezoned. And that little bubble is everybody who owns property within 200 feet of the subject properties to be rezoned. The reason the city is initiating this area rezone is if we were to look at our zoning map, all of that dark purple is commercially zoned property, and all of the light industrial is your light purple. And if we were to look at the aerial here, it's predominantly a residential neighborhood and has been for, some of the plats, I think this is the OTP, so you're talking about a plat over 100 and something years old that's been a residential neighborhood. At some point, it was rezoned to allow for commercial uses. those commercial properties and uses never took off. That speculation didn't really pan out, and it ended up not being so well for local developers who want to redevelop and build new homes in the area, or existing property owners, if their property is significantly damaged or tornado or fire, they wouldn't be able to rebuild. It also creates title issues when someone's trying to sell their home. So we had received plenty of individual applications to rezone 50 lots by 50 by 100 feet. Instead, we're just going to take an initiative here to take a step forward and clean this up for the residents that live in this area. We've sent notices out to everybody that is going to be rezoned and properties within 200 feet. We are encouraging anybody who does not want to be included in this area rezone SF5 to reach out to us. Since this report here, we have received 4 or 5 letters of folks wanting to be excluded. Mr. Earnhardt has a couple that he'll be getting me. So assuming this goes forward to City Council, then they'll have a complete list of everybody wanting to not be included in the rezone. So we want to be very sensitive to that.
So that was I was leading that to my next question, because we do have some commercial development within the district. And if we blanketed this, then they would become legal non-conforming, and if they have fire or tornado, then they couldn't be built.
Same problem, yeah.
Okay, so the commercial uses have the opportunity to be excluded in this zoning.
Yes.
Is that correct?
100% correct. So
Do they have to make that request, or are we gonna automatically take all the commercial development within this district and exclude them from the zone?
I've physically visited each of these properties and excluded ones in which I felt were engaged in commercial use or are having a commercial structure already existing. There's a feed store back there. There's kind of like a little mini gas station that's there. There's kind of an auto workshop. So we wouldn't interfere with those commercial businesses. Now, if I miss something, then the applicant still has an ability to come in and say, hey, Bill, I don't want this included. And they'll give me the legal description, we'll take it out. So the properties that are colored in orange are the only ones that we're requesting to be rezoned.
Okay.
So my clarification has to do with the buffer zone around. Are those the people that you haven't heard from one way or the other?
The buffer zone are folks that we sent letters to letting them know that they are within 200 feet of another property that's being rezoned. That's a state requirement that we notify them. That's that bubble. We specifically excluded anything adjacent to Austin Avenue because that should always stay commercial.
So they've all been contacted?
Everybody, yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions, staff? No, sir. All right, thank you. All right, anyone here to speak in favor of this request?
Jonathan Earnhardt, just in case y'all didn't know, 110 South Houston Avenue.
We need to see your driver's license.
Yeah. Of course, I've had the problem of selling a house that was commercial zoned. They didn't catch it until 3 days. It took us 60 days to correct it. Luckily, the girl was able to wait, wasn't really put out, so this will definitely be good for the people that have houses that are zoned commercial that are trying to sell.
That's happened numerous times.
Yeah.
Over the past 2 years.
And it's caught last. City, I really like the city adjusted this. When we first got the letter, it was kind of blanket. I said, I'm really concerned for the commercial because we put them in non-conforming, got a mess. Looks like Bill personally went and pulled most of those out. And some of them I own 10 properties there right now. I got 3 under contract. I got power of attorney on those. But, Bill's, I'm going to just note it to him. Last minutes, I've been gone, so I kind of miss it, but he's kind of corrected all of our issues, so I'm going to pull them. I think it's good because it does become a major problem when you're zoned incorrect, and I really like how the city pulled the commercial out, so I think it's being done correctly. Where the first time it was just blanket zone commercial, and that's why we're in the mess. If we would have done it again, we'd be in that mess.
That was a concern of mine from when we first started talking about this a couple of years ago, is that we've got a mixed use here, and I don't see either one of them damaged,
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I own 5 commercial properties there, and I own 5 residential lots. So, it's really good that it's pulled out. I don't have to fight back and forth one way or the other. So I think this was a good way to get it done. So that's it.
All right, thanks, sir. Notice Johnson's got circles under his eyes. I don't think he's getting a whole lot of sleep at night these days.
Probably correct.
All right, anyone else here speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, entertain a motion.
I move to recommend the rezoning of the multiple infill lots from commercial to light industrial zoning districts to single-family SF5 zoning district located approximately east of North Austin Avenue, north of West Candy Street, and west of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe rail line.
Have a motion with a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, none opposed. All right, staff updates. We got any updates, Bill?
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. Mr. John Webb wanted me to share our council results. Let's see. The big item really is going to be for the comprehensive zoning ordinance amendment that John was working on that got through city council. Auto sales, vehicle boat sales, all that is allowed on the highway overlay with a conditional use permit. Everything else was approved as is. Another update was the conditional use permit for Red Rock Saloon. That was approved with the amendment to limit live music or live entertainment to begin after 8 p.m. So they ended up getting their hours of adjustment, just tweaking
Band
when.
don't want to start that early anyway.
Well, and that's understanding that they're gonna do their sound checks at 7:30 rather
Yeah.
than
Well, they
3:30
won't.
in the afternoon.
Sound checks are done usually 2 to 3 hours prior to.
And that's.
That's where she's got a problem.
And noise like that is really, if they have a separate noise complaint that violates, the noise limits in the entertainment district, then they can reach back out and we can follow up with that separately too.
I was hoping John was gonna be here today because, John's leaving us. And,
Yes, I saw him. He did come by, he had something he had to do.
So.
Yeah, we'll miss him.
I hate to see him go.
I know. I told him on
That's
behalf
good.
of all of us, we'd miss him.
As a part of public record, I just want to say that I think we made a lot of progress in a short time with John here. He had some good ideas, and I know the city of Corinth will
I have a
benefit from
question that I hope we don't forget about, and it's actually goes back to Judd Rex. We had talked about connecting Juanita to some Main Street area, possibly going through, possibly connecting with Crawford. I'd like us to, I wonder if anything has been mentioned about that. I don't know if that was when you were around or not, but it just seems like a really good idea. With the development that's gonna be happening up there, with that little piece of land that at this point would run parallel to the train track down there, it would be pretty easy to do to connect with Crawford.
Sure. I'm sorry, Mary.
So looking at the aerial, it could connect with Woodard, but it was Judd Rex's idea to.
I think that's gonna come down to a budgetary thing,
Yeah, that's honestly the first time I've heard of that.
I'm just wanting to keep it in the mind's eye,
Yeah, I
so that
think
when
that
we
needs to
come
be,
to some point of
taken to
development,
council to be made a part of the thoroughfare.
yeah.
Master thoroughfare
Yeah.
plan. Yeah, sure. And I've not heard of that. I can follow up with some of our staff to see if there are any.
When we were doing the first landscaping, and we're talking about the 700 block and all of the different things that are going in because of the TERS, and he could see, Judd Rex has a good planning mind, and he could see that that would be a good way to connect downtown, because there's gonna be all these developments in other areas too, and we need another way other than tone to get to Main Street.
It'll be a little bit tricky because of we used to have that Dairy Queen there, and I don't know what the name of the restaurant is, the places across the street from Watson-Burger, so that's Juanita and Morgan Street, right? So I don't know how you plow through there and not disrupt a business, but clearly that would be a great idea. And we also have this fantasy of redoing Maurice north of Ward Street going out to the high school, because that's the main artery that goes out to the lake, to the high school. And there was a study done there, 4,000
Yeah.
It's
That's
all-
the thing.
It is, but here comes another planned development, and they want to do whatever. And that's when we need to remember what it is we're going to do, and then we involve it with the planned development.
Well, no, it's okay. If we got a new development coming in,
That's hard to do.
and there's something in the comp plan, maybe we can align those thoroughfares up. That's a chance to do it.
You know,
Also, I'll follow up with that
we
for
can't
sure.
hold the developer responsible for
No,
redoing
no.
the thoroughfares for us. They're responsible for
No,
their.
but they're going to bring in
Yeah.
tax dollars that are going to help with that development.
There's been all sorts of conversations about how do we bring in lake traffic from 75 and get them into downtown. You know, what's going to be the best route, and looking at what we have. And I think that when we finally get downtown redone, then it's going to be a serious conversation of how do we channel that now.
You gotta really want to get away north, and that street's awful.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, one of the scenarios was to bring the majority of the traffic from the lake down 84 and bring them in to Tone, and then bring them into downtown. That it had the least negativity of any route that we have at this point in time. So, you know, I think there's gonna be some talk of how to clean up the arteries coming in. There's talk of taking Crawford and continue it on, you know, not Crawford, but, Woodard maybe.
Woodard or Chestnut, no, not
There
Chestnut.
was something that was continued through
Yeah.
the old crosstie plant out there.
Well, and that's the thing, is Woodard connects with South French, I think it is, on that corner. And that would be a natural right there
Yeah.
to do something.
Our problem is the topo in our city is pretty
'Cause that's
drastic.
where that baseball
Yeah.
field is
Yeah.
at the end of
Yeah.
Woodard.
Yeah.
That's wicked high. So
Yeah,
that-
it's, we
Yeah.
got a
Yeah.
lot
see
of
everything
issues
west of
there.
that. You can see all the way to Docona from there.
But, you
And
know,
you'd have to build a bridge over the train line if you
and
went.
cleaning up Morton Street would be a dream of mine if we could make that happen, but,
Exactly. No, that would
Maybe I
us
should
on that.
adjourn for now.
Well,
Yeah.
I make a motion to adjourn.
yeah.
Second.
And we have a motion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 11:21.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Good job, everybody.
Fanch, I need to sign you.